Okay, good morning, everybody. Um, still on our financial structure series. So I talked about savings being like some sort of delayed expense. So so we've already talked about budget being equal to your income minus your expenses minus your savings. Now, your savings is an essential part of your budget, and it is something that must come out of your expense, sorry, out of your income directly. So you don't have to put it as part of your expenses, you put it as part of your income. So um, you start by looking at your income, of course, taking out 70% as expenses. That is where you will make most of your expenses. And then the remaining 30%, you can allocate it the way you want to your savings and maybe your tithes and other things. Now, I believe that many of us will um, usually wonder where all our money goes to. Every month you're wondering, where has all my money gone? I'm sure when you begin to track your expenses, when you begin to write it down, you'll be able to easily answer that question, because until you're able to answer that question, you are not going to be able to create wealth nor have financial independence. So that's very important. Yeah, so I wanted to take the conversation about savings a little bit further. Now, when you save 20% of your income every month, what you're signaling to wealth or to money is that you deserve more of it, right? Because money, like I always say, is like a woman. It likes to go where it is well treated. Now, if money cannot stay in your hands, it just means that you are treating money badly, right? So it's important for you to understand your savings is a signal to money to come to you. So in that case, you start having bright ideas, you start having new connections, you start having opportunities to make more money, basically. So if you ask most people who have made savings part of their culture, you discover that they've made there's been more advantage for them. They just seem to always have money to do stuff that they need to do, and that is the whole idea. Now, at first, when you begin, it's not always easy, and that's why I said that one of the ways to motivate yourself to save is by creating specific containers. So for example, you have 10 things you want to achieve this year, you create different containers for them and begin to put money in there. Doesn't matter how much you're putting in, what's important is the consistency. The more consistent you are with doing that, the more with time you're going to create the room or the flow to increase your intensity. So consistency is the most important thing at the beginning, and then with time you would have intensity to increase the size and the volume, and that has worked for me personally. I remember several years ago when I was earning, not so much money, but I remained consistent. I stumbled on a paper that I wrote sometime in November 2013, yes, where when I received my salary and I sat down, I was breaking it down on how I was going to spend it. Yes, I don't know if you can see this clearly. Yes, so if you look at this, yes, pardon my writing is like doctor's handwriting. But if you see it, you see easily all my salary, income, and everything. You see how it's broken down, how it's spent, and all of that. Not many people have records of their expenses or income or anything like that. It is clearly defined how the money will be spent. And if you look at that document, the biggest component is my savings. So at that time, I was saving minimum of 50% of my income. So that's really magical stuff. But it down the line, made way for me because opportunities started coming. bigger doors started opening, more income started coming in, and I think one of my biggest regrets was not being more aggressive with my savings when I was on a good run when I started trading crypto. But I think eventually when I woke up, the 3 years between when I woke up and now really helped, create a good base for me, to be able to do several things. So now, what does it mean to create container for your savings? It just means labeling your savings appropriately and then putting them in different accounts if possible. One of the apps that we use in my community for savings is Piggyvest and Coin. Sorry, I'm trying to remember this other one's name. Cowrywise, yes, those two. Now there are other solutions as well that are available, and if you feel more comfortable using traditional banks, that's okay. The idea of a savings is that it should not easily be accessible, right? So yes, it should take some extra steps for you to be able to access it. So for example, my major savings account does not have an ATM card. It doesn't have access through online banking. So I need to go into the bank to make a withdrawal. So that usually gives me time to rethink before I go and withdraw from my savings. Yes, so because sometimes there's some issues that come up and you think throwing money at it is the solution. But most of the time, it's not about throwing money at it. Sometimes about pausing, taking a moment to think about it again and see if there are other solutions that doesn't require money. And many of the times, you will discover that is the case. Yes. So, but what we're saying is you should have your savings in different containers. Now, one thing that I always said is the first thing you should build with your savings is an emergency fund. An emergency fund is just like 6 months worth of essential expenses. Now, take note, essential expenses, because if you don't pay attention to the essentials, like for example, on your budget, you should have a part of your budget that is the essential, that once that is taken care of, you can find your way around the rest. Yes, so that is what you want to build a 6 month worth of essential expenses. Now, what this means is if you lose your income, maybe you lose your job, or you lose your main source of income, or your income drops drastically, you would have the security of going to use that. So that emergency fund should never be used for anything other than a life-threatening situation for you. Now, what about other people? We have said before that you cannot use your savings for charity. Your savings is best used to invest into your future, right? So if it's getting a new skill, if it's getting a new certificate, if it's getting something that moves you forward and makes you able to grow the size of your savings and your value as a person. Because if you don't do that, you will discover that you continue to move in circles, right? People will move ahead and people will continue to invest in themselves and continue to boost their own value. And you can only do that if you have some form of, what will I call it now, a buffer. Because your income, most of the time, there are so many things competing to take them from you. So the best way is to use your savings to build, good buffer to use to improve your value, invest in your future and that of your children. And I believe that if you're consistent enough, it will show in your results. And that I believe is something that you should strive for as much as you can so that you don't end up running into moments of zero income and zero savings, because once you get to a point where there's zero income and you have nothing in savings, you're going to be highly frustrated. And an highly frustrated person cannot create value. And if you can't create value, you can't create income. So you have to always remember that. So that's why when somebody comes and asks you for a loan and the only money you have available to you is your savings, it is not something you can do in that moment, and you should be able to own up to that. Don't let anybody emotionally blackmail you. Yes, so have a nice Sunday, and we'll catch in some other videos. Thank you.